Kings, queens, and beautiful people who watch this channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the 2012 cyberpunk action series Psycho-Pass, written by Urobuchi, who wrote Fate Zero and Madoka Magica, animation done by production I.G., which did part labor in Ghost in the Shell. If you like cyberpunk dystopians in the likes of 1984 or Minority Report or Ghost in the Shell, then you'll like the likes of Psycho-Pass. I'll explain the setting first before I go into the characters or story. Now, Psycho-Pass is set in this futuristic Japan in the next century, where the Sybil system, this powerful collective system, measures the brain scans of every Japanese citizen and mentalities, and measures the likelihood of you getting a job, but as well, the most important thing it does, it measures the likelihood of you committing a crime before you even commit it. What it will do, basically, is that the police, the Public Safety Bureau, and the society is, if anyone's crime coefficient, which is the measurement they use to measure somebody's mental state, if you're below 100, you're fine. If you're above 100, you're not so good. If you're above 300, you'll be executed. Basically, what the Public Safety Bureau does, because this system scans everything constantly, if your crime coefficient goes above 100, whether it's extreme stress or whatever mental health issues that could cause you to have a high crime coefficient, they'll be notified, and either three things will happen. You'll be pursued, apprehended, arrested, or if it goes too high, decomposed. And the thing the Public Safety Bureau uses to determine this is these dominators. They're like these electric type guns. I'll try to put a photo of it. That measures the crime coefficient of everyone, and it's only hooked up to the police officers themselves. Now, the police in Psycho-Pass I'll describe. You have your inspectors, which are typical law-abiding citizens with a crime coefficient below 100, who are in charge of enforcers, people who are basically had a crime coefficient above 100, but not so high to be executed. They pretty much do all the dog work for the police. They're kind of isolated away from society, so they don't poison other people's, crime coefficient. And basically the society is a perfect society where no crime exists. And that sounds perfect to most people, but the issue with it, which I'll describe to some degree without spoiling it, is if you have a society where people aren't used to stress or not used to any sort of negative feeling, generally speaking, the moment they run into it, even the thought of possibly going to prison or possibly having too high of a crime coefficient, which is established in the first episode, can cause you to have a high crime coefficient, either to the extent you're put into therapy and interlock system, which you never generally get out of. In the rare case, you do go to the therapy or rehabilitation and you do go out. You can kind of see the flaw within this entire system.
Intuition, I cannot sit and just wait for permission.
Through the hard times, I feel the pain. Through the hard times, I stay the same with desire. I make the change, you and I are meant for this stage. Let's disappear.
Gotta find my own way.
The story of Psycho-Pass, we're seeing through the eyes of rookie inspector Akane Tsunemori. She joins Unit 1. She has an honest and earnest heart to uphold justice and law and order, and she joins the Public Safety Bureau. As I've been establishing, this isn't a perfect society, because if you have a society in which a system judges your every move, which even the thought of you committing a crime, stress, anxiety, or any sort of negative emotions can affect you, it ain't perfect. And we learn this through the first few episodes, because it's even established in the first episode, I'm not spoiling much, that even somebody who's thought of their crime coefficient going up so high causes them to be stressed to commit a crime. They basically kidnap somebody, that it causes their crime coefficient to be so high that the system, the enforcers and inspectors in that particular situation, he was executed. Boy, it was a bloody death. But the issue with that, the person he kidnapped, because of the stress of the situation of both seeing somebody die and also being kidnapped, crime coefficient went up so high that initially the system judged the victim, may I point out, to be executed. But obviously Akane intervenes because she obviously sees this as wrong and stuns Kogami, who is about to do that, and tries to talk the victim down, eventually getting her down to a crime coefficient enough to her to just be paralyzed and sent into rehab and rehabilitation. And this situation, I feel like, clearly establishes the main issue with this society, because you either have a society in which if you're a victim of a crime or have severe mental health issues, or if you've never experienced stress in your life, your crime coefficient can go high to the point you're either labeled a latent criminal and you never get to be put out in regular society. The rare case, you get rehabilitated and you're back to normal. Or the worst case scenario, where that man, his crime coefficient was so high that it stressed him out. He committed a crime, it got him executed. And obviously that first episode she got in trouble for, though what we'd view as the right thing, intervening in that case. Even Kogami kind of sides with her, even though he's not mad at her for studying him, she understands it. I think that's the problem with this. They kind of go into this series. The main issue they go into with this entire series as well is the idea of somebody who's an exception to the rule, somebody who can't be judged by the system. No matter they commit the most heinous and atrocious crimes, the system will not judge them, or it will not be judge, jury, or executioner. Enter in the villain of Shogo Makishima. He obviously quite clearly has a philosophy of free will and people being free to do what they want to do. He's educated. He's actually a decent fighter. I think that actually shows in the first episode. It kind of shows you, it's a flash forward, so to speak. And it's mostly his rivalry between Kogami, who has a particular view of justice, though doesn't think the system's inherently perfect, and Makishima, who's the opposite of the system in every which way. So that's one of the main themes the story goes into without kind of spoiling anything. Now, there is other characters. The Masuoka, who's kind of the fun, somewhat older detective who was around before the Sybil system even came into place, but due to him not adapting to the Sybil system, and things like that, it caused him to be labeled a latent criminal and become an enforcer, basically. Then we have the character of Kaguri, who I would have thought this would have been interesting to see a character who was scanned, as there is in this entire society, there's always scans, at the age of 5 as a latent criminal. You wonder what that does to a person's mind. Now, he seems generally fun and upgoing, but I wish we kind of delved into the idea of what happens to somebody who's labeled as latent criminal, because it's not even people who have stress or mental health issues that seem to be affected. It even seems to be people who are a bit too alternative or a bit too outside the system that seem to be judged by the same system. Then we have Kunizuka, who's an enforcer that used to be a musician, but for whatever reason, end up becoming an enforcer. Then we have Kanamori, who's kind of their latent criminal, who's also their tech side of things. We have, like I said, Kokumi, who used to actually be an inspector or detective until he was on a case in which his partner was murdered and obviously witnessed that. That caused his crime coefficient to be bad enough to become a latent criminal and to be enforced by this said system. You can kind of see where the theme of this story is going as I'm describing each character. Then you have the senior inspector, Kunizuka. He's usually this, straight-laced, tight-ass boss, you can imagine. Though he has his own complications with trying to maintain a low crime coefficient and his complicated relationship with his father due to his father being a latent criminal. And that's kind of in terms of the story or characters I can mention without getting too spoilery. Like I said, it starts with a lot of monster of the week kind of, crime we have to solve each case. But like I said, the overarching story becomes of, what the system is, what it does, the flaws within that system, which I think in terms of world building and because I'm into series like that is interesting. And like I said, most characters have personalities that make them interesting themselves. So for that, I rate it quite highly. Now, in terms of animation and style, I would say it's animated by Production IG, which has done a lot of anime like Ghost in the Shell and Part Labor and the likes. And like I said, the series is very much inspired by other cyberpunk series as well. I feel like the art style, though maybe not the most unique thing and would probably look a bit more of what we'd associate with traditional anime, I think is rather fitting for the show. The actual animation and design, I think, is brilliant. It really shows what a futuristic Japan would look like in this society. I think it does really well. When there's an action scene, it looks good. The sound and the motions match perfectly. Whoever did that side of things did it well. Now, in terms of sound, I love the music. I would play it, but I'd get copyrighted instantly. A Link to Setsugure's Abnormalize and Nothing Carved Out of Stone. They're the two openings in season 1. I haven't really gone to season 2 because I can't without spoiling things. Enigmatic Feeling is a good opening, as well as the ending themes done by Egoist. I love Egoist. When I heard Name Nai Kaibutsu, which I've used in previous videos, I thought is one of those ending themes I thought was generally better than some openings I've listened to. I love it. I play it on repeat. I like the rock and the elements to it. I basically, it's the reason I found Egoist and linked to Sigure. I love the music in this show a lot. I think it's really fitting within the series as well. Like I said, it may not be the most unique designs, but it may not be the most original designs, but it's definitely unique, I would say, in that regard.